We're here with Norman Solomon at Netroots 2011. Thank you for stopping by our booth. You're a longtime, well-known progressive writer and activist. You're running for Congress now. Tell us why.
I am. Well, why would I be doing this? I've been an activist for about 40 years now. I live in Northern California, and for the first time in 20 years, we're going to have a vacancy. Lynn Woolsey apparently will not run again. To me, it's an issue of the crises that we're in, and I use the plural because we have so many different, what I consider to be concentric crises, the environment, the perpetual warfare state, the war on the poor, the dominance of Wall Street, of our economic decision-making out of Washington, the trickle-down disaster of the budget cuts at state and local governments, the global warming crisis. So when we look at that and so much more, I think at the core of those concentric crises are undue corporate power and a deficiency, a lack of democracy. That's the real deficit crisis that we face. It's not the economic, fiscal, federal deficit. It is the deficit of democracy, and undue corporate power is absolutely central to that crisis. So I'm running for Congress to be, as Paul Wellstone said, part of the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party. I want to join the Progressive Caucus to be part of the progressive wing of the Progressive Caucus.
I mean, Marin County, where you're from, is considered to most of us, a hotbed of the progressive movement, the Bay Area in general. What do you bring that other candidates and the current representatives don't have?
Well, it's a very progressive district, and really I would be fulfilling the legacy of the incumbent Lynn Woolsey, who now for 18 and a half years or so has represented the district really with fidelity to anti-war, progressive, social justice, environmental principles. All of my opponents are to my right. I have been, although I was an elected Obama delegate to the 2008 Democratic National Convention, I've been willing and able to be outspoken, to be critical of many of the, to put it mildly, disappointing policies out of the Obama administration. None of my opponents have been willing to do that, and I see that as emblematic of the need to not only speak truth to power, but about power. And when I went to Afghanistan almost 2 years ago, the people who I saw there suffering from the displaced and foolish and destructive priorities of U.S. spending in Afghanistan, they didn't care whether the president had a D or an R after his name. They cared about policy. And that's what I bring to this race as a progressive who, as a Democrat, is willing to speak truthfully about what's at stake and the need for progressive policies. And that has to include challenging Wall Street. I support John Conyers' bill, which is the 21st Century Full Employment and Job Training Act, which provides for two fundamental principles in one package: full federal commitment to full employment and a 1/4% transaction tax on Wall Street, which could raise easily $100 billion with a B dollars a year to help fund a federal jobs program. I'm an unreconstructed Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal Democrat. We've got to have the kind of government commitment to full employment that can turn the economy around.
I want to get back to Afghanistan for a second. What needs to happen in the national discussion for us to end our participation in the war in Afghanistan, and for that matter, Iraq, too?
Well, I think the national discussion has to deal with the reality that the big enemy in Afghanistan, and Pakistan for that matter, is poverty. And I saw it there. When you have such a high infant mortality rate, maternal death rate, that our gift to Afghanistan is bombs and bullets and soldiers is absolutely, totally out of whack. The spending priorities are absolutely wrong. We're giving, when you come down to it, in reality, 2 cents on the dollar to humanitarian aid in Afghanistan, and we're giving them weaponry and more war. So I think if we can shift the discourse, we can not only emphasize the need to have different spending priorities in Afghanistan, but that the warfare state is depleting our capacity in this country for healthcare, education, housing, good green jobs. That's the reality.
And what needs to happen also in terms of the national discussion inside and outside of politics for the Democrats to take back the House, perhaps, or certainly to regain the movement that was lost in 2010?
Yeah, you got to stand for something. I mean, the right-wing Republican dominance of the House and dominance of so much of the discourse really emphasizes that as progressives, we need to speak clearly about what our values are and not continue to split the difference. And I would give a quick example here. FDR denounced those he called the economic royalists. And President Roosevelt said in a speech in Madison Square Garden in 1936, "They hate me and I welcome their hatred." He didn't say, "They hate me and I want them to like me." And so the effort of this administration to ingratiate itself by moving farther and farther to the right is a Faustian bargain that's the worst of both worlds. We keep moving policy rightward, and the Republicans are always going to hate, and the Wall Street hardliners will always hate the Democratic Party, or at least progressives anyway. So I think our imperative is to stand for a clear progressive agenda that will work, that will create jobs, protect the environment, end perpetual war. It can be done. As the saying goes, it's a matter of political will and grassroots organizing, which is what my campaign is about. And I'd like to invite folks who are watching, if you want to help, if you want to get more involved, please go to our website. It's www.solomonforcongress.com. It's just solomonforcongress.com. You can sign up for email updates. You can offer support, including contributions if you're willing, and I hope you'll consider that. We are distributing tens of thousands of these brochures around our district in the North Bay, just above the Golden Gate Bridge, and we really need your help. And it's really about organizing. I'm very excited about that.
Norman, one final question. How about the labor movement? What we saw in Madison and elsewhere in the Midwest, was that a last gasp, or was that a complete rebirth of the labor movement?
Well, I think it is under fire, sort of the crucible of the labor movement, realizing that if we allow the similar priorities to continue, labor unions will be crushed. And it's not enough to say, well, a Democrat in Congress, for instance, votes right most of the time. It's not enough to vote correct. We need to redefine the issues and fight like hell for working people. And I would give a quick example. At the Democratic National State Convention in California, the most popular speaker was not a Democrat. It was Bernie Sanders. Why? Because he talked about defending the rights and advocating for the rights of working people. That is the only way to do it. And to split the difference with the likes of the Chamber of Commerce or the Republican Party or Blue Dog Democrats, that is a way for the labor movement to further find itself being pushed in a corner and dissipated. So we've got to get back to organizing and not apologize for the fact that we want to support working people.